Hey guys, it's Evan with Evan K Exotics, and the subject of today's video is called the window of opportunity, and using the window of opportunity to pair and unpair your boas during breeding. So this is going to be a pretty nuts and bolts level discussion about how you can pair and unpair your boas and ensure good fertility and make sure that you catch the breeding window. But also the thing I'd like to tell you is that this is a concept that was promoted by Jeff Roney, the boaphile. And I'm going to tell you that he is an author in this book, The Boa Constrictor Manual. He's probably an author in many books, or at least a contributor to many books. This is a book that I've owned 3 copies of. I lost the first one when I was a kid, then I lost the second one to water damage and a plumbing issue, and then I bought a third one. So even these slightly older books have value. I'd like to tell you this is a Philippe de Vos-Joly book, who is a huge name in the early publications. Roger Klingenberg and Jeff Rohn, the boaphile. So that's what I will tell you guys, is that if you are liking this information, go out and purchase one of their books. They are valuable. They are where I learned a lot of my stuff. And if you are somebody that's looking to do what I'm doing, there's information in here for you as well. And all that being said, I'd like to point out here, this is where it says cycling and the window of opportunity. So this is very much a Jeff Rohn, the boaphile idea. The other thing I will tell you is that Jeff Rohn has the boaphile YouTube channel, and he's putting out a lot of stuff on there that's pretty remarkable. And I think I've watched a lot of it, and it's really valuable and it's really great. And I think that it might be hard for people who haven't gone through a breeding cycle or two, or haven't closely paid attention to their animals during a breeding cycle or two, to pick up a lot of what he's saying. But he's really talking in a lot of detail and a lot of experience and a lot of and then showing in his collections these things occurring, because they're things that I've seen and I just don't have the number of repetitions to really have named them or picked up on them. And they're also things that I couldn't show you because I don't have the animals. So it's just really a kind of a cool thing to go over to Jeff's page and see what somebody with tons of experience is going to tell you, versus somebody like me who's just going to tell you their moderate amounts of experience. So that's all my big plug for Jeff Rohn, the boaphile, and thanking him for the window of opportunity, because the window of opportunity has been the biggest thing for my success in boa breeding out there, other than just being a very good keeper. Because I think that the biggest contingency for being successful in breeding is having excellently healthy, mature sexual adult pairs. But once you have that, the window of opportunity is going to help ensure that you catch that receptive breeding window, and it's going to ensure that you don't pull your male too early. And so let's break down what the window of opportunity is. And here he talks about cycling boas. The first thing he says in cycling and the window of opportunities is that female boa constrictors remain available for breeding for a relatively long period of time. And so that's actually a really important concept with the window of opportunity, because the window of opportunity is introducing the male at intervals to catch when that female is receptive. And because that female is receptive for a relatively long period of time, it works to our advantage in that specially it doesn't mean that we're having these short cycles that we're having to reintroduce quickly. What Jeff Rohn would suggest you do is that you create a 3-week cycle. So every 3 weeks you introduce the male for a few days. And if you see interest, courtship, you leave him in because you know that's the window of opportunity. But then after a few days, you pull him back out, you feed him, you do whatever you need to do with him, and then 3 weeks later, you put him back in. So there should be a 3-week cycle, and in every 3-week chunk, there should be a few days to a week where it's staying in the cage. I tend to leave my animals in for a week at a time just because I do most of my stuff on the weekend. So if I'm gonna put him in, I'll put him in on the weekend, I'll watch him for the weekend, and then I will go to work and I'll be watching him daily, but I can't watch him throughout the day. And then if I don't see anything for that week, I will feel confident that there was no action, and then I pull him out. But Jeff Rohn, I think in here is saying a few days, but the big picture is in every 3-week chunk, a few days to a week, you put your male with your female, and you're testing to see if that male starts courting. It's really, what you're looking for is the male's behavior in courting the female and being on top of the female and writhing on top of her, creating the coils on top of her, trying to tickle her with the tail. None of that is true breeding, that's courtship, but that's what you're looking for. If you don't see any of that in a few days, pull the male back out. In that 2 weeks when they're not together, you can go ahead and feed them. You can do whatever you need to do with them. And then when that 3-week cycle starts again, put them back in. And by doing this once or twice or 3 times or 4 times, you're going to catch that window of opportunity where she's receptive, because you don't actually know. You might think that it's in the winter season, but you don't actually know when she's going to be receptive. And by starting to do this on the earlier end and continuing and doing it until you catch the courtship, you are going to catch that window. Okay, and so usually I introduce my pairs once or twice and don't see anything, and the second or third time, that's when I think they're going. And I'm putting them together starting in early November. So that usually means that like somewhere in December is when I kind of see some courtship. That's just kind of how it works for me. But that's the point in how you can introduce them. On the back end, one of your biggest modes of failure is that you pull your male too early and you get poor fertility. So you can use the window of opportunity in reverse to make sure that you don't pull your male too early. And I don't use a 3-week interval in reverse, because I think that once you're thick into the breeding season, it wouldn't take you 3-week intervals. But when a female, I believe a female has had her post-ovulation shed and is bred and is looking gravid, one of the most distinct signs of that is the male is going to go from being all over her to being far away from her. It's almost like they're all together, and then it's almost like it's aversive to them. They don't want to be together anymore. That's the cue that they're likely bred. And if I can see that in conjunction with some physical changes to the female, hopefully a post-ovulation shed, hopefully something very obvious and swollen, I will start to feel pretty good that that male has gotten his job done and bred the female and that she is ovulated. That said, I'm not just going to spike the ball and count it done. I'm not going to bank my season on that. I am not going to risk my first chance of breeding any of my Argentine boas to that assessment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that male back in at intervals. So my Argentine boa that I had paired, I'm pretty sure she had a post-ovulation shed about a week ago, a little over a week ago, and the male went from being all on top of her to being on opposite sides of the enclosure. She's using one hotspot, he's using the other hotspot. They have 2 separate microenvironments, so they don't have to compete for the environment, and they are completely separate. That's a cue to me that she is likely bred. That in conjunction with her getting big and looking all those positive things, and in conjunction with her shedding, says to me she's likely bred. However, I pull him out, I fed him about a week ago. This weekend, I'm going to put him back in. So maybe, pulled him out for about 10, 14 days, put him back in. Leave him in for a handful of days. If I catch any more interest, I'm going to let it ride. If I don't, I'm going to pull him out again and do that cycle again, 2-3 weeks, and put him back in. The point being is I want to be putting that male back in several times to make sure that I'm not just missing the copulation and the interest that he's still showing, or that he's not just taking a break and I misidentify that, because I don't want to bank my season on my assumption about something that I can't really tell what's going on. The males can use all their senses to physiologically tell where that female is, and if he's telling you that she's bred, then I'm much more confident that she's bred. So that's the way you can use the window of opportunity, or that concept of introducing at intervals over time. In reverse. So you can use it at the beginning of the season to make sure you don't miss your window, and you just start early in the season and keep doing that in those 3-week intervals until you catch the receptivity. And then at the end, once you think you're bred, you do it in reverse to make sure that you didn't misidentify something that the animal is truly bred. So that's just what I tell you out there for that. And then the last thing to that is, logically, in the separation periods, I think people worry a lot about when you feed your animals, but logically, when you separate them, that's when you feed them. So, you just separate them, pull them apart, and in that week or 2 when they're apart, you can go ahead and feed them. Even if they're intensely courting and they're in the thick of the breeding season, there's going to be periods of time when they're less intensely together, and I'll try to catch that window and just separate them for a day or 2 and feed them and put them back together. I don't worry too much about separating them to feed. I haven't found that to be too big of an issue, and I think that goes back to the fact where Jeff Rohn said that boa constrictors tend to be receptive to breeding for quite a long while, so you have some of that flexibility in there. So I hope that answers some nuts and bolts questions. I was getting questions, I think Alluvial asked me some of those questions, but anyways, I hope that helps for you guys. Take care, bye-bye.